Everybody, welcome in as you're watching and listening here on the Key on Sports YouTube channel. And it is a special new podcast because of the World Cup here this year. The 2022 World Cup gets underway here very shortly, actually coming up here, really starting this weekend, getting into those matches. The United States plays on Monday. Now, I'm Cole McDaniel. Everybody out there, most of you, if not everybody, you know who I am. I'm the vice president here at Key on Sports. And joining me here for this podcast over the next couple of weeks is Matt Mroczynski. He and I met at Baldwin-Wallace University in college, and freshman year, we were roommates, and he has since been in my wedding. I am going to be in his wedding here coming up shortly. So we've known each other for quite a few years now, and we both have the same passion, the common knowledge for soccer. And it just so happens we found out when we became roommates, we happen to both be Manchester United fans. So we both share in the same pain and suffering over those years as well. Matt, good to be with you.
Yeah, glad to join the show, Cole.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to jumping into this one here. And we're going to start off with, I'm wearing the old 2014 World Cup kit. Last time the United States was in the World Cup, again, have the, almost like popsicle looking jerseys. But I've got that on here. And now, after missing the World Cup in 2018, with this delayed World Cup because of it being in Qatar and can't play during the summer because it's too hot there, we finally get to this around the holiday season. It feels good to have the World Cup, but it's strange to interrupt a lot of those other seasons, the Premier League, La Liga, all the club matches. So those seasons are interrupted. We'll talk about that here a little bit later on. But as we dive in at the beginning, I know we want to talk about the United States and their 26-man roster. Matt, your initial thoughts on that roster. What did you like? What did you not like?
Things I do like. It's obvious that Berhalter is going with a four at the back, and then three midfielders and three forwards. How he's going to use those forward six players is going to be a little interesting to see how he goes with between the matches. I know with Wales being first, we've played Wales twice and never lost. So most recently we won 2-0 many years ago, though. So it's kind of just a new team for us to face, really. I'd say surprise ends would be Jordan Morris for sure up top, Aaron Long, and I guess Christian rolled on a little bit, but with 26, you get a little dice in those last three picks compared to most seasons. The one that kind of really sticks out for me would be the missing of John Brooks, just that experience at the back. I know Berhalter doesn't really like the way that he plays for the type of way he wants to play in this World Cup, but I just feel like that experience from the 2014 World Cup, only having one member on this squad from the last World Cup that we were in, I don't think it's going to make a massive difference, but just that experience at the back, and not even just in the back, but in the squad, in the camp for those at least three matches that we'll have, could make a huge difference. So we'll just see how it plays out. That's the one that kind of scratches my head a little bit, but overall, you can't really complain with his picks.
Yeah, no, I think in general it was fairly straightforward. There were a couple that we expected to be in there that Paul Arriola, a guy who I'm actually not disappointed to not see in the squad, but at the same time, I almost am shocked that he's not in there because Berhalter plays him a lot. I'm shocked by that. United States men's national team soccer has almost been in this position it was so strange. The best way to describe it is you had this older generation that they hit a point. Why they didn't qualify for 2018 is you almost had a huge gap where you had the older generation and then you had all the young guys who were 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. And it was a matter, do you take the best talent, the guys who can run a lot right now, or do you take the old experienced guys? The United States chose to go with the old experienced guys, and they couldn't run with the rest of CONCACAF in qualifying. It's why they didn't make it in 2018. Those guys that weren't chosen for qualifying, that certainly had the potential and all the talent, now they're a couple years older. It's why they qualified. They're here now, but it's still a team now run by 21, 22, 23-year-olds. They're still young kids. They lack some of that experience. And that's why you see some of these older guys get incorporated into the squad. And most of the older guys come from MLS type talent. So you're still lacking some of that older experience overseas. The one person I'm really happy to actually see, now I wasn't the biggest fan of him a while back, is Tim Ream. But I do like how he's been playing in the last year or two with Fulham. And he's grown on me. And so I think his experience is good to bring him in. I think that's a key thing for this team. But their style of play is still going to have to be run, run, run. You're not going to possess the ball more than England and some of those other teams you go up against. I would expect against Iran, maybe the United States can control possession. I think it's going to be pretty split 50-50 versus Wales. England should really boss the ball with the quality that they have. It's going to be a matter of in transition, on counterattacks. Can you outrun everybody and really hustle a little bit more? And Brendan Aronson, I think, is a perfect example of that because he and Tyler Adams are doing that at Leeds right now with the style of play that they have. So that's going to be the ultimate thing that the United States, they're going to have to do when they play in this tournament. They're just going to have to give it out there on the field every game. Forget about another one coming up. You just got to run until your legs can't go anymore. I look in goal, Zach Steffen. I know he had the injury. I questioned that a little bit that Sean Johnson's in there. Johnson can make a lot of saves. I question his ability with his feet, though. If he ever has to play and step in, I'm not sure how he is with the passing out of the backside of things. That's my question with Sean Johnson. I think even though we talked about the great wingers that they have a lot of great wingers, excellent in the midfield in general. I'd like to see them play a false nine. You and I had texted about that. I don't think they'll do it because Berhalter's going to want to put some size up front, or at least put a true center forward up there, but I'd prefer seeing them play a false nine. I don't think they'll do it. My concern, though, is center back depth. Even though I like the addition of Ream and I think you have Zimmerman, that's probably the weakness for the United States, just in general, their whole pool of players. Do they have enough big, solid center backs? Again, John Brooks, not part of this squad. Matt Mroczynski, not part of that. You don't have that many to choose from, I don't feel like. And so I do question Aaron Long and some of those other guys, if they can be physical enough, as stout enough as some of those other countries when they have some really solid rocks in the back. I think you're going to have to score a good amount of goals in this World Cup because I don't think they're going to pitch many shutouts, if any at all. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I totally agree there. I mean, the center backs are going to be an issue. I totally agree with you with Tim Ream. He's been really incredible for Fulham. I mean, he was on the periphery for at least 6 years with the national team. And then, he gets brought back in and he deserves to be on the plane, deserves to be starting, in my opinion, for the United States, especially against Wales. I think you think of Wales and you think of the talent that they have, in midfield. They've got some great players, but then they got Joe Allen too, who's not a great player. He's played for Liverpool, but he's not a name that's really gonna boss the midfield. I think with Wales, the key there is using your youthful ignorance, as I put it on my little cheat sheet here, and the energy of running around, getting around the guys, the defenders, and utilizing low crosses to about between the 6 and the 12 yard spot, and even to the edge of the penalty area. And I got another key to the U.S. success is Weston McKennie. I mean, I think he is going to be the key in that midfield. He's going to pop up with maybe 2 goals from 20, 25 yards, and and he might even pop up with one from a corner. He's got a great leap on him, even not even being 6 foot in the midfield. But also, I think Berhalter has got to be smart with his first 2 subs. You got Gio Reyna and you got Yunus Musa on the bench most likely for most games. I think you got to be smart with your bench and your first 2 subs. And if those are your first 2 subs, around the 60-minute mark in close games, U.S. could really, either pull ahead or, pull back into a match and at least gain a point. So I think those are definitely the keys is, utilizing that youthful spirit, Weston McKennie in the midfield, and using your first 2 subs correctly.
Yeah, and we'll get to about what we think is going to happen with the U.S., and we'll get to them as we're going to touch on Group B here in just a moment. But the next thing we're going to go over here is we touched on the U.S. and their 26-man squad, that roster. A couple of those inclusions, Jordan Morris, some of those guys, Christian Roldan, guys that maybe a little bit more questionable, but I do see why they got put in because of their experience. Like I said, we'll get back to that squad and what we expect them to do. But the next part of the show, we want to talk about who finishes first, who finishes second in each and every single group. And we're going to run down through these groups. We're going to keep it short, keep it sweet as to why we think each team finishes in a certain position. But we're going to start with Group A, Ecuador, the Netherlands, the host country in Qatar, and Senegal. Matt, I will start with you here in Group A. Who finishes first? Who finishes second?
This one seems pretty straightforward to me. The Netherlands is going to finish 1. They've got they're in a similar position with the United States, being young. They phased out a lot of older guys, and they have a really youthful squad themselves. They also missed out to 2018 World Cup, so pretty interesting parallels there. So I got the Netherlands finishing 1, and I got Ecuador finishing 2 in that group. Actually, they run a lot, and I think they might swamp Senegal, especially without Sadio Mane.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting there on that. And I am with you that I have Netherlands finishing first in that group. They've been in a similar position to the U.S. and Italy. Again, the group of 3 of them, probably the surprises that didn't qualify back in 2018. I saw a tweet that was actually funny the other day. It said there's only one person with Van on the roster. Things are going downhill for the Netherlands. Van Dijk, of course, the only one there. It is not the days of Van Persie, Robin, Wesley Sneijder. That team was so loaded. They were very talented. They have good pieces. There's still good players out there on that team. My question is, can they score a bunch of goals? I don't question their midfield with De Jong, in the defense with Van Dijk. I think down the center of the park, they have some physicality. I question on the outside a little bit, especially if Daley Blin's still in your squad. But we'll see what happens there. I think they should easily get through their group. I think they're going to control their group handily. After that, I might have some surprises for you there. Ecuador is actually becoming a surprising favorite to finish second in that group. A lot of people are picking Ecuador. I'm going with Senegal because Sadio Mane is supposed to play, was the last report that I saw. Of course, this is a tight time frame with picking up the knock, so I don't know if he'll be full health. But if he gets out there on the pitch and plays, I think Sadio Mane is good enough that he can carry Senegal to that second spot. So I'm going Netherlands and Senegal there. Flipping over to Group B, the group with the United States, England, Iran, United States, and Wales. Of course, that first game for the U.S. coming up against Wales. I'm going to start it off here. As much as I think that this group is interesting, I think Iran's obviously the bottom. I think that Wales and the United States are really going to be battling with each other. England is not untouchable. I think there's a lot of questions in Southgate's squad, and I actually could see the United States having a draw with England on Black Friday, maybe even pulling off a surprise upset. But just because there's a lot of youth in the United States squad, and I question the center backs a little bit for the U.S. going up against Harry Kane, that's my biggest concern. is the physicality of Kane. I think he's going to find a way to somehow put the ball in the back of the net. We see it so often in the Premier League. So I'm going with England finishing first in that group. I think the United States, they do just enough. As much as Wales is scary, Gareth Bale, he's not the same Gareth Bale. He's past his prime. I look at some of the speed that they have. They try to get out in transition as well. But I really don't look at Wales as a team that is as good as the United States. If the U.S. plays well, we talked about Tyler Adams, Brendan Aronson, Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Tim Weah. There's actually a lot of good young talent. They should finish second in the group.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And England, it really is not untouchable. We've discussed it multiple times ourselves. Southgate really, I don't get his obsession with the back five. I don't get his obsession with Harry Maguire. And you basically talked me for 2 years. I was defending Harry Maguire.
I got you on the bandwagon. Yes,
it's not a bandwagon. I gave him the benefit of the doubt for 2 years, and he just proved to me that he's not good enough. I think he's a solid center back in a certain system, but man, making him a priority for your squad is really, really terrifying if you're an England fan. But I agree. I think they just squeak out one because of that inexperience that the United States has. But Wales is definitely a team that can hurt you on the break, but they're not the same team. They're not Gareth Bale from 4 years ago. They're not Aaron Ramsey of 4 years ago either. They're really a gettable team. So yeah, I agree with you. England won, United States 2, Wales just misses out in 3.
Yeah, and that one is going to be fun, actually. That Black Friday game, going to be in the car traveling down, but thankfully it will be my father-in-law who will be driving on the way down to South Carolina. So I'm going to promptly take my backseat spot in the very back. I'm going to be streaming that game, and whoever's back there with me better enjoy watching the World Cup, because you best believe that is going to be streaming on my phone on the way down. So, but Wales is up first. That's the first order of business. The United States has every bit of potential to not only get out of this group, but I'll be honest, make a little bit of a run. I actually have them, because if they finish second in the group, they play against Netherlands. If the Netherlands wins their group, I have them in that very next round, knocking off the Dutch, because I question the Dutch. And then I think that's about the end of the road for the U.S. I don't think they could get much farther than that, but they could actually piece together some good things where it looks like, hey, in 2016 when they host, watch out for the U.S. They could actually make even more noise. It's going to be a nice step in the right direction for this squad. Now, a couple teams in this Group C to pay attention to, and really one main one that's getting a lot of hype around them, and that's Argentina. Argentina, Mexico, Poland, Saudi Arabia. Matt, first and second in this group.
Well, first is going to be Argentina. I mean, that they seem to just keep reloading every 8 to 12 years. They just get a new crop of young guys, and it seems like Lionel Messi is just never gonna retire at this point, even though he did that fake retirement for a month until they got a new coach. But yeah, it's at the second and third spot that really has me. I think both Mexico and Poland really have they've got a good 12, 13 man roster. And from there, they kind of lose some depth. I have Mexico just squeaking out of this group, but ever so slightly. I think it's going to be close. And that's going to be a fun group to watch just for that second spot coming out of that group.
Yeah, I think first spot should be easily in Argentina's hands. It's one of the reasons why they're one of the favorites coming in this year. They have a lot of attacking weapons. It's typical Argentina, and they're certainly reloaded. Plenty of good pieces there on that squad. And they really should make it through this group easily, even if they don't finish first. But I think pretty handily they will be first here. The thing is, I had to put the Mexico of old in the back of my mind and put it to the side. Because when I think Mexico of old, I'm thinking they're definitely going to make it through this group. But the current squad has definitely hit their struggles for a while. I mean, they've been losing to the United States when they go up against them. They just don't look like the same Mexico squad. I like Raul Jimenez a lot. I really enjoy watching him play for Wolves. But I don't think since he returned from that injury, he's ever been quite the same as what he had been before. He's still a good goal scorer, somebody to watch out for. Chucky Lozano, really their main guy is a winger. But I look around that squad and then I look over to Poland. And you're right, there's not a lot of depth after that really first 13 guys or so. But I'm not going to count against Robert Lewandowski. The man is a goal scorer. He's a monster up top. So I'm going with Argentina 1, Poland 2nd in that group, and getting past Mexico. Now we turn to Group D, as we're about halfway through these groups. Australia, Denmark, France, Tunisia. And I feel like I know which way you're going to go. I think we're going to be on similar pages here. France, with the talent they have, they should honestly just roll through this group. I got Denmark as the second group there. I think they have enough pieces. Australia's maybe the one that I think could maybe make a little bit of noise, make it a game against Denmark. But I don't think they're going to have enough to piece together 3 decent matches to make it through. So France and Denmark, pretty straightforward, I think, how most people would expect that group.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And really, I mean, if you're going to be a second place team in a group like this, you really only need, two solid matches. And it's going to be hard for Australia to get 2 solid matches out of this. I just think Denmark has enough quality in that midfield and even in the back to get out of this group. And I mean, France is going to steamroll this group. It's probably up there with Brazil, who we'll get to eventually, as probably the deepest squads. Mm-hmm. Top to bottom, not just your first 11. But yeah, France is going to top this group for sure.
Yeah, I think that group, you said it, not one of the toughest groups there. Next one might actually be the contender for the group of death. I think Group E and Group H compete with each other here of who's the true group of death. But Costa Rica can sometimes be sneaky. You have Costa Rica, Germany, Japan, Spain. This is actually a really interesting group, and I'll go to you, Matt, first.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot of the 2014 U.S. group with Portugal, Germany, and Ghana. It's a very similar style of group where anyone can beat anyone. But I think Spain's going to come out on top, and watch out for Japan in this group. But I think Germany reloaded this World Cup. After that 2018 hangover from the 2014 World Cup win, I think Germany's back and will finish second. But I would be a little weary of Japan in this group for the top guys.
Well, I would be weary of Japan and Costa Rica. I think both could make some noise, and actually this could be a really tight, close group. Why I have Germany at number 1 is just because we talked about, you mentioned it, the layover in 2018. I don't think Germany's going to be able to deal with having 2 layovers back to back. So I think they end up walking away with this group. And Spain possibly has the potential to make a deeper run, but I think they finish second because Germany's going to be on a mission in their group. But like I said, we'll get to it a little bit later, but I do think Spain maybe makes a deeper run. But you and I are both on the same page there with Germany and Spain, but watch out for Japan and Costa Rica. This is not a shoe-in for those 2 big countries there who should be favorites there in that group. As we turn to F, Belgium, Canada, Croatia, and Morocco. I'll start off with this one. Belgium has plenty of talent. They have a lot of weapons, Kevin De Bruyne, some of those guys, Romelu Lukaku. They have a lot of players on that squad that's really made them one of the top-ranked countries in the world. And everybody has them as a favorite in almost every single recent tournament. And then they fall flat and they don't do what they're expected to do. Well, I think it's going to be much of the same this season. They should steamroll this group in general. I think they're going to steamroll the group, go out as first. The hype's going to be there and things fall apart pretty quickly for the Belgians after they get through this group. Aside from that, Croatia and Canada, I think they're the toss-up for the second one. Canada has some good players there, but Canada, I don't think, has the quality of Luka Modric on the other side, man who's dominant there in the midfield for Croatia. I think that squad for Croatia, we saw them make a run a few years back. They look great in that World Cup in 2018. I think they show up, they get second here in this group and do enough.
Yeah, I just worry about that midfield in Croatia. It's gotten older. It's only, it's 4 years older from the last World Cup where they finished second and they made a good run at that one. I just worry about those legs in midfield, especially with this, mid-season World Cup. It's going to be a little tough. But I think they might just have enough to get out of this group. Don't sleep on Morocco. They've got some talent. They'll definitely make some noise at the bottom. I think but I definitely have Belgium coming out of this group number one, and they're just going to run into a boss sub, whoever comes in second in Group E, going forward. So yeah, Belgium and then Croatia.
As we turn to Group G, Brazil, Cameroon, Serbia, and Switzerland. This is one that I'll toss to you here first before I get to the last group. But I got to say, we haven't really been in favor of the African countries here so far, which I love to see the African countries out there because the support and the way the camaraderie is with those clubs, with those countries. I hate Nigeria not being in and qualifying for this season. Again, they're always a fun one, but Cameroon, can they be really the African team that makes their way through?
If it was the Cameroon of old with Samuel Eto'o, I would give them a shot, but it's just not the same team. Unfortunately for Cameroon, this go around. I obviously Brazil's going to finish one in this group. Brazil's just, as I mentioned before, they're top to bottom, just loaded. You can't go through that squad, see a name and not recognize who they are. The second place is a little up for grabs here. Serbia, you gotta watch out for Mitrovic. When is he going to come back from injury? We'll have to see. And Switzerland always somehow makes a run. They always end up getting out of groups, it seems like, in these tournaments. And for that, I kind of got a lead in Switzerland just because they always seem to get out of groups. Yeah. So I'll go Brazil 1, Switzerland 2.
Yeah, fair. And you're right. Brazil is loaded. Their defense is good. Up top, their wingers, their forwards, talk about talent. I mean, Gabriel Jesus, Anthony, Richarlison, Gabriel Martinelli, Neymar, Vinicius Jr. I mean, you can run through that list and it is loaded. I mean, they can honestly form like 3 squads of forwards and wingers together, and they're going to be able to find a way to score goals. I think they're going to be the highest scoring team in the World Cup. The question for them is in the midfield. When you have Fred on your roster, that means you don't have the best pool of midfielders, because everybody in Brazil, I guess, wants to be a winger and a forward and press forward and score the goals. Obviously, you have a couple decent holding midfielders. You have a couple other guys that I think aren't bad. Now, Casemiro's getting a little bit older. He doesn't quite have the legs, but he still actually looked decent at times with the United, but he has made mistakes on the ball. If he gets caught in possession sometimes. Fred's going to work for you, but Brazil better not have him out there on the field too much if they want a chance to actually control possession and have the ball, because he's going to turn it over constantly. I don't hate him as a player. I just think that that tells me you've got limitations in your pool of players in the midfield. So that's the only concern there for Brazil. They're going to cruise through this group. And then as for second, my heart tells me Cameroon, my head tells me Switzerland, and I'm going with my head here. Switzerland, they make those runs, they get through groups, and they're going to do it again here. So Brazil and Switzerland, you and I are on the same page, and we get down to the last group. And the last group here, we've got Ghana, Portugal, South Korea, Uruguay, and this really is probably the group of depth, even though Group E does compete a little bit. I'm going to start this one off. I don't think Portugal wins this group. I think the Ronaldo stuff going on right now isn't going to help. Ronaldo is still a great player, but he doesn't have the speed, the legs he did. He's just seemed off when he's been out there on the pitch for United. I don't know if you saw the video this week of Bruno and Cristiano Ronaldo's awkward exchange after the interview as well. Seems like there's some tensions between them at the moment as well. So I think that Portugal has enough talent, but I don't think that's going to help them out. It might carry over, and that's why I have Uruguay winning this. I actually think with Darwin Nunez, with Suarez, I know he's older, Cavani, still older. I still think they're going to score some goals. And I have Uruguay winning this group and Portugal getting second. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be an entertaining group. But I actually think Uruguay pulls it off, even though a lot of people might think Portugal.
Well, I think those are the two names that obviously kind of grab the attention of getting out of this group for sure. I just think Portugal's got enough depth around to there are going to be a little bit of fractures in that Portugal squad with the whole Ronaldo thing, but also at the same time, you got to think he knows this is probably his last World Cup. He's definitely going to play like it's his last World Cup. And I think everyone around him is probably going to play like it's his last World Cup. So I think Portugal just has enough to get out and be one, but only just. And it's really, I think he ends up being a rallying point in that squad because he's a legend. 700 career club goals, 800 plus total goals in his career. That's just an insane number. And yeah, he's a great player. And I think they will put enough quality balls into the box for him to get at least one or two and be a rallying point for this squad.
Yeah, and that's fair. And Diogo Jota, also a guy who's out injured. I think that hurts them not having that depth and having him on the wings. So something to pay attention to. I know you said you think Portugal gets out, they win that group. Do you have Uruguay as second then? Yeah. I mean, Uruguay's they're a historic country when it comes to the World Cup. Not recent success by the terms of titles, but they always make it out of groups like Switzerland. But they've got 2 World Cups in their history, and they always seem to produce world-class forwards, world-class defenders. And I mean, unfortunately, the midfield kind of always seems to hold down Uruguay in these tournaments. And the game, as it said, it's won and lost in the midfield. And unfortunately for Uruguay, that usually ends up hurting them in these knockout tournaments. But they're a squad that definitely grabs the attention, especially with the forward line. They got some great guys up there. So there you have it. We broke down all those groups and what we think is going to happen there. Now, I know we're all going to be rooting for the United States, like we talked about earlier, started off the show. And like I said, I think they get out of the group and then beat the Netherlands in that next round. And then after that, the road ends there. But we're going to go to who we think finishes first, second, third, and fourth. And I'm going to start off with this. I said Spain's going to finish second in their group, but I actually have them getting to the third place game, but losing to Argentina. So Argentina, one of those favorites, I have them finishing third, Spain fourth. So who's the final? The final, 2 of the most loaded squads. France, we talked about being loaded. I have them there in the final and returning. Brazil, even though I talked about some lack of depth there in the midfield, they're going to score enough goals. That's not going to be a problem. They're going to get there. So I got the winner. Brazil comes away with the 2022 World Cup victory. I have them winning by a score of 3-2 over the French there. they're going to, I think, walk away with the World Cup victory. They're going to play a fun brand of soccer. The football that they're going to play out there on the pitch in Qatar, I think it's just going to be fast-paced, goal after goal. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they just blow everybody out of the water with most goals scored. I just feel like that attack is going to be relentless, because not only the starting lineup, but it's a matter of who's actually going to start. That's going to be almost hard to select from that group. Then there's going to be a ton of bench guys. But guess who's going to be the one to get left out and get the least minutes? That's almost hard to tell. And I'd almost argue Neymar might be one of those guys, because some of the other ones are in such great form that Martinelli and Antony and Jesus and Vinicius, I think you have to get them in. So Neymar might not see as much time as he's seen in past seasons with that loaded group, but it will be fun. My other question is, who's going to be that number 9? I almost think Richarlison's got to play some number 9 when Jesus isn't in, because I think it's mostly loaded with wingers. But I think Brazil does enough to get by France. So there you have it. First Brazil, second France, third Argentina, fourth Spain. How do you feel, Matt?
It's a good top 4. It's interesting that you said Brazil's going to win when you just harped on Fred for about 2 minutes and his limitations.
It's easy to harp on Fred. I mean, he makes mistakes all the time, but he'll never stop giving effort, which I think is a good thing.
And it's easy for Fred to, and he always seems to play well for Brazil, but it always seems to come down to he's always got someone to give the ball to. And it's almost like they bypass Fred because he knows he can just give the ball to someone else really quickly. Whereas I think with United, he tends to want to, do a little bit more because he's not quite sure about everyone else around him at times. So I think that's probably, if they're going to win, that's going to be how they win, is that Fred is just going to make those quick decisions. I really can't say who's going to win for sure. And you got to be wary of France just because you don't know if you're going to get the curse of the World Cup champions, or if you're going to, get someone who's going to go, break the curse. You always see it with like the Madden cover curse or the Super Bowl curse, and you just never know what's going to happen. So you just got to be wary of France in both directions. They're and like I said, France and Brazil have the most loaded squads, top to bottom. So, but I can't disagree with your picks there.
Okay. How do you feel about? I know I put up there in that third place game Argentina and Spain. Any thoughts on those two teams as we wind this one down?
Watch out for Argentina to make a run. Same reason for Portugal. Leo Messi is going to be a rallying point. They're going to play like it's his last World Cup, and they're going to want to get him that World Cup title to put him up there with Maradona.
Okay. Yep. Very fair. So our last thing here, with under 2 minutes left to go in this show, again, everybody, thanks for watching and listening to Around the World in 30 Minutes. We're going to really have a once-a-week show throughout the World Cup. That is the plan, where we get to talk all about the World Cup and the matches that we have seen and recap some of those matches, and then preview what's upcoming as well. We're looking forward to it. Last thing, the delay with the club schedule. And if there are injuries during the World Cup, is this an opportunity for a new Premier League champion to arise and it not be Man City?
Well, in preparing for this, it's all going to come down to form and injuries after this World Cup. Because the problem is with Arsenal being, 5 points ahead is, they were on a roll. And, it almost seems like
and we're under a minute, just to give you a heads up.
Okay. And in the surprise loss for City in their last match was almost like an opportune time for a break for them. And they actually are in a position with their ownership group that they can make investments in the January transfer window, where I don't know if Arsenal can. So that's going to be the problem coming out of this World Cup. If there are any injuries for Arsenal, are they going to be able to make investments in the squad to continue this title run? And that's where the questions come. I guess we'll have a better answer next week or in 2 weeks.
Well, it's a great opportunity for Brighton. I still say Man City comes away with it. Everybody, thanks for watching and listening to the first episode of Around the World in 30 Minutes. For Cole McDaniel and Matt Mroczynski,